Okay, it says we're live, and my clock says it's almost 1 o'clock. I'll give it a couple more seconds just in case anybody joins us live, and then we will get going. Oh, hey, there's Ursula.
Hello, how you doing?
Great, how about you?
Good. Getting ready for the end.
Yes, yes. How are you feeling about that?
I'm not looking forward to all the grading.
Yep. What do your finals look like? Are they lots of papers to grade, or?
So some papers and some presentations.
Okay.
And the presentations are easier and more fun to grade.
Sure. Well, then I say just do presentations for everybody then.
I know. I always give them a choice.
Oh, I see. Well, it's good. It's good to give them the choice. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. So, like, what percentage would you say chooses a paper over a presentation?
It's pretty even, but I would say 60% presentations, 40% papers. But there's a third option, which is a journal that they have to keep over the entire quarter. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a lot of students, the majority of students choose that one. And I think they're under the impression that that's easy. Not, because you have to stay on track.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you know, though, I love assignments that students think are easy and actually end up involving more effort. Because they think they're getting away with something, but in reality, they're really putting in a lot of effort. So
exactly.
That's also why I like tests where you let students write their own notes and then bring their notes to the test. Because they're always thinking, oh boy, you know, all I have to do is read the chapter and write down notes and I can pass the test.
Yeah.
And then as the instructor, you're like, oh, wow, you're really getting away with something there. All right. Anyway, we are live on our Tech Talks, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. And we'll see if anybody joins us in Zoom or on our YouTube broadcast. So the topic today is using PowerPoint and Google Slides, either or, to give you sort of a hacked version of live captioning on your Zoom meetings. In our office, we talk about accessibility often, very frequently, and we make it a big priority to make our courses as accessible to as many students as possible. And one of the best practices for accessibility is making sure that videos are captioned whenever possible. It helps students that have hearing disabilities, but it also helps really all students. Most students will say that when captioning is an option for videos, a lot of times they like to have that turned on because it helps them track with what somebody is talking about, especially if it's a really complicated topic. And it's just easier for them to track what's going on if there are captions available. But when it comes to live video, like we're doing right now, a Zoom meeting or something like that, captioning is not always available. There are services that will do live human captioning where you are paying a person to join your meeting. You set them as the captioner for the meeting, and they are trained to type very fast using a special software that captions live while you're talking. Live human captioning is pretty accurate as long as you have a good service, but it is amazingly expensive. It is prohibitively expensive to use on a proactive basis. When we have a student with a documented disability in a class, oftentimes disability services will spend the money to bring in a captioner, or in some cases a signer if a student needs somebody with sign language interpretation skills. But if we want to make accessibility a proactive, universal thing, then it would be nice to have an option that's just always available to us, right? Now, I'm hoping that in 6 months or so, this topic is going to become a moot point, because we know that Zoom is working with some developers to put live auto captioning right into the Zoom framework, so that there will just be a button that you click and it will turn on an AI that listens to the audio and turns it into text. but they have not released that yet. We don't know if and when they will release it. We don't know if it will cost any extra money or if it will just be part of the service. So for now, we're kind of waiting and hoping on that. But I wanted to show a couple of things that you can do with software you already have available to give you some approximation of live captioning. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share my screen and kind of give a quick demo of some options here. Okay. All right, so I am sharing my computer screen right now, and you should see a PowerPoint open. I'm just in the editor mode right now, so you can see, there's the slides on the side, and there's the toolbar and all of that stuff. In PowerPoint, when you are going to do a presentation, you go over to the slideshow option here. And over here, you have a captions and subtitles section. And here you can set all kinds of things. You can set what the spoken language is, because they will caption a number of different languages. So, choose the language that you are speaking so that it knows what it's trying to understand. Select your microphone. A lot of these settings are just fine by default, but you have some options here. The captions show up in the top, overlaid over your slide, bottom overlaid, below the slide, above the slide. But for now, we're just going to use the default settings. There's also this checkbox here, always use subtitles. And today, I would tell you, I recommend just having that checked off by default. And then it will always be available anytime you are giving a presentation. You can always turn it off if you want to turn it off, but I am kind of leaning towards just having it on by default. So anyway, I have that checked off, and now I'm going to begin my slide. And you will see now, and it's really, it's a little distracting, so I can't look at it while I'm talking, because then I see the live transcript of myself. So I'm trying not to look at it. I'm trying to block it from my own view. But I have live captioning going on right now. It's actually maybe important to note that they don't call it captioning, they call it subtitles, because captioning actually is a specific technical term, which I think currently captioning, when it's live, means it's a human doing the captioning. Because the auto captioning is not perfect. It's pretty accurate, but it's not 100% accurate. It also depends on things like background noise, if there's a fan going in your office or in your room, if you have kids running around outside, running back and forth down the hall and screaming like I do right now. Sometimes that will distract from the auto captioning. If you are talking about a particularly technical subject, it may not always capture the jargon correctly. So it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And it's already available to you. It's free because it's just part of PowerPoint. And I don't think there's any reason not to use it in most situations. See, it just said it's free because Jeff Parker PowerPoint. What I said was it's free because you already have PowerPoint. So that's actually another good point, is it helps if you speak a little more slowly, a little more intentionally. And that's actually something that I could benefit from myself, is forcing myself to talk a little slower during a video presentation. So in that way, it's actually helpful just as a guide. So you'll notice it's not perfect. There's a few mistakes in there. Just a second, because I think we had a chat message pop up. Or if you're wearing a mask in the classroom, yes. Yeah, if you're wearing a mask and your voice is muffled, then the microphone's not going to pick it up very well, and the quality of the captions won't be great. So there are just some limitations to be aware of. It's not perfect, but an important thing to think about when we're talking about accessibility is that accessibility is not all or nothing. It's not 100% or 0%. It's about what steps can we take that are practical and available to us to increase the accessibility of our content and of our courses. And it may not be perfect, and it may not ever be perfect, but there are always steps that we can take to raise that level another couple points, so to speak. So I think these auto captionings are one of those things.
Caleb, if I could interject real quick, because I'm looking at the captions, which you might not be looking at. They are not at all accurate. And I do want to say that usually they are, but I feel that there's some background noise that is competing with what you're saying. I've never seen them be this inaccurate, which it's a good thing to see, and how ambient noise affects it. But normally they're a lot more accurate than this.
Yes, I've noticed that as well. Sorry, I'm rearranging my microphone here because it may not be pointing directly at me, and that might help. I've actually noticed that the Google slide captions tend to be more accurate than the PowerPoint captions. So that was what I was going to show next, is the Google slide version of this. And we'll see if we notice a difference. Because you're right, I have background noise going on here. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but I've got kids yelling and noise and fans going, and it's not an ideal audio situation. Okay, so I'm going to close out this PowerPoint.
And it is set on American English, right?
Yeah, I believe it was, but you know what? Let's double check.
Because I have several keyboards on my phone, for instance, and when I dictate, yeah, it is. I sometimes get these funny typings, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is the microphone on my camera is not the best. If I had a better microphone, a dedicated microphone that was not just built into the camera, it would probably give me a better result. If I were doing a lot of live lectures to students on a regular basis, I would probably invest in a better microphone. You know, you can get a really good microphone for 50, 60 bucks that is very high quality, much better than what you're going to get from a USB webcam or from the camera built into a laptop. So that's something to think about. So I'm going to move away from PowerPoint in the interest of time. And now I am showing a Google slide. If you're not familiar with Google Slides, it is Google's answer to PowerPoint, basically. Google has its own Office suite, which includes a word processor and a spreadsheet tool and an email and calendar and a slide presentation software called Google Slides. Personally, I kind of like it better than PowerPoint. It's simpler. It doesn't have as many features. So there are certain things that I can't do in Google Slides that I could do in PowerPoint. So it's, you know, it's kind of a matter of personal preference, what you're experienced with, but it's another option to think about. So I am going to present this slideshow. I'm going to click present. And I don't know if you are able to see the presenter toolbar on the bottom. You can. Okay, perfect. So there's a caption button right here. And if I click turn on captions, it will start giving us auto captions. And yeah, I think in general, the Google Slides captioning is better and more accurate than the PowerPoint in general. This is probably because Google has access to the YouTube algorithms, which also have a built-in captioning tool in YouTube, which is very good. Again, not perfect, not as good as a live human probably, but very good for an artificial intelligence captioning. So I'm pretty impressed with the quality and the accuracy of the Google Slides captioning. Something else that I notice on here, and again, I'm trying not to look because it's distracting, but it'll actually go back and rewrite previous words based on the next word. It has some contextual intelligence to it. So if it thinks that here's one word and then I say something else afterwards that gives more context to the previous word, it'll actually go back and correct it, which I think is pretty interesting. Something else that you have control over here. Let's see, there we go. Again, text position, top or bottom, text size, small, medium, large, extra large. You can make it quite large if you want to. I think medium is probably fine for most things. And similar settings are available in PowerPoint. Something to be aware of when it comes to the positioning of your captions in PowerPoint or in Google Slides is what kind of system are you using and how are you sharing in Zoom? Right now I'm sharing my whole screen, which means if I move my mouse along the bottom, or maybe not because of the way the slide is working, but if you saw my toolbar along the bottom, my Windows toolbar with a start menu and all those things, if I had the captions on the bottom of my screen, the toolbar might cut that off and make it harder to see that. Another thing that could happen is the Zoom controls in your own personal Zoom meeting. If you move your mouse over that and the Zoom controls pop up, it can block part of those captions. So it might make sense to put the captions at the top of the slide instead of the bottom. It's kind of going to be based on personal preference and what you are showing and what system you're on, because on Windows, the toolbar is on the bottom of the screen. On Macs, the menu bar is along the top. So there's a few different things to consider there. So again, it's pretty plug and play as far as you're concerned. All you have to do is press the button to turn on captions and it goes. Now, another limitation to this system, it is only going to caption my voice. It does not caption anyone else in the Zoom meeting. It's only captioning audio that's coming through my computer, my microphone. So this kind of caption is not very useful if you are trying to do some kind of group discussion or a conversation between two people, because it's only going to pick up one side of that conversation. So again, not perfect. Now, during a lecture portion of a Zoom meeting, when it's really just the one person talking for the most part, it works fine. But if you have, a breakout room portion of your lecture meeting or a group discussion portion, it's not going to work. So there's one more thing that I want to show you, and it's kind of a way to hack this system to provide auto captioning outside of your presentation. Because you might be in a situation where you have a PowerPoint slide going, but then you want to show something else. Maybe you need to show a procedure in Canvas or a specialized piece of software that you use in your program, or a publisher website or something like that. What you can do is you can actually keep the presentation software going in the background, and then you can open up a window on top of that. So I have a web browser window right here. Now, normally that's going to be full screen and it's going to block off everything. But if I take it out of full screen mode, and then I just need to rearrange it a little bit. And now I have the Google Slides running in the background, the voice captioning running in the background, and I have a browser window running in the foreground. So you should be able to see both of those things going at once. So again, it's just an extra little thing that you can do to increase the level of accessibility in your live Zoom meetings. Trying to think if there was anything else I'm missing here. Vanessa, do you have anything to add at this point?
No, but I wanted, it was neat to see the difference between PowerPoint with background noises and Google Slides with background noises, how much more accurate it is. But
Yeah.
one neat little feature of PowerPoint that Google Slides doesn't have is that it does translate the captions. I've only tried it from English to Spanish, but it's pretty accurate. So that's another nifty little tool. So you can be speaking in English or another language, and then it translates it to a different one.
That's really cool. I haven't played with that yet. So yeah, if you have any ESL students in the class, or maybe it is an ESL focused class, that could be a really helpful tool to just have that extra little layer of accessibility. But yeah, you're right. Right now, given my current environment with the noise in the background and the not great microphone, there's a huge difference in the accuracy between PowerPoint and Google Slides. When I tested this out and it's a little quieter and I don't have kids running around, I haven't noticed as much of a difference. Usually the PowerPoint captions are pretty good. But yeah, when the noise environment is less than perfect, it seems like the Google Slide captions are better and more accurate. I'm going to look at our YouTube chat and just see if I'm missing anything. We have a couple people watching, but nobody's chimed in, so that's fine. Any other thoughts about using this in your own practice, or any other applications that I haven't thought of here?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
And I'm not even sure how to articulate it.
Okay.
But Canvas has its own automatic captions.
Panopto does.
Oh, Panopto, and I use those, and they are sometimes closer to the PowerPoint captions like we read earlier than those.
Yes.
So how do those two apps play with each other?
That is an excellent question. The answer is they don't play well with each other. If I were doing this, a PowerPoint or a Google slide recording in Panopto to put into my Canvas course, and then I put the Panopto captions on top of it, then the two would basically overlay on top of each other, which can actually cause some visibility issues. It can actually be kind of a problem. Here's what I would suggest in that situation. If the video is going straight into Panopto and then into Canvas, you're probably better off just using the Panopto captions. But like you said, it's not the most accurate compared to some other services. The good news is it's very easy to go back and correct the Panopto captions, because once you turn on the auto captions, then it basically gives you a transcript down the side. And it's easy for you as the owner of the video, if there's a glaring mistake, it's easy to go in there and fix it. And then, of course, if you do have a student in your class with a documented accessibility need that's come through DSS, they will actually pay us. They have a budget to be used for live human captioning of those videos. You work with Rick Sir in the e-learning office, and he submits the video for captioning through a captioning service. And then about 8 hours later, there's live human captions built into it, which is going to be more accurate in general because it's done by a professional human, but it does cost money. And right now we only have funds to do that when there is a documented disability student in that class.
But then the entire class can benefit from that, right?
It does, absolutely. Yeah, once the captions are paid for and processed, then those captions are always available. So if you make a video this quarter and you get it professionally captioned because you have a student with a documentation, then if you want to reuse that video in a future quarter, the captions are still there. They're there forever, for as long as you keep using that video. So that's a nice thing is, sometimes it takes a little bit of work on the front end to do captioning well. If we're talking about using the Panopto auto captioning and then going in there and manually correcting it where it needs correction, that's going to take a little bit of time for you as the instructor. But once you do it, it's there forever. And then that video is now more accessible for all future students as well. So I think that's really worth doing if you have the time and the inclination to do it.
Okay.
And like I said, I am hopeful that in the near future, we'll have even more captioning options available. I am fairly confident, I'm hoping within the next 6 months, Zoom will roll out an integrated auto captioning feature. If you ever use Microsoft Teams for any video meetings, that also has captioning built in. And it probably uses the same AI that PowerPoint does. So again, sometimes it's not as accurate depending on the quality of the voices in the room. But something that is nice about doing it either through MS Teams or through Zoom, once it has a captioning integration, is that it'll caption everybody's voice and not just the owner of the PowerPoint or the owner of the Google slideshow.
Oh, that was another question I had. So it's both Google Slides and PowerPoint. They can only capture the presenter's voice.
Yes. It's really only looking for what's coming through my microphone.
Okay.
Now, I haven't tried this. You could probably, if you really wanted to, figure out some way to take the input, the output, the sound from your speakers, and then loop it back through the microphone and do something with an attachment or whatever. And you might be able to then caption more than one voice. But I haven't tried that, and I don't know how well it would work. It's probably not worth the trouble at this point for most people. But so again, it's just something to be aware of, that it's going to be very useful if you're doing sort of a sage on the stage lecture, less useful if you're having some kind of discussion format or a Q&A or an interview or something like that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what we have for today's presentation. Like I said, I think fundamentally it comes down to your philosophy of accessibility and universal design. The idea that accessibility is not all or nothing. It's not 100% or 0%. It's about finding the low-hanging fruit of accessibility, the things that are easy to fix. Let's fix them right now. The things that are a little bit harder to fix, let's think longer term and more systemically about how we can improve those processes and improve that accessibility. But if there's something that you can do today that is better than nothing, I say let's do it.
Yeah, this is helpful. But you know what I find interesting is that it does not do any punctuation.
Yeah, and you know what? Now that you're talking, I noticed that it was actually captioning you.
Yeah, it's probably because you're not on Google Slides or on PowerPoint.
I am in Google Slides. What the captions that we're seeing along the top of the screen are through Google Slides. So I still have that slideshow going on in the background.
Oh, so why does it? Oh, did you just stop it?
No, I didn't. It's still going. So here's what I think is happening. I have my speakers along the bottom of my monitor, and I have my webcam at the top of my monitor. So it is hearing whatever's coming out of the speaker. It's feeding it back in. So the quality of the captions from you or from Vanessa or from somebody else in the meeting is not going to be as good, because it's kind of like secondhand captioning. But it's actually, when you were talking, it was better than I thought it would do. It was not bad. Because again, I think the Google Slide caption is surprisingly accurate.
I agree with that. And I'm speaking deliberately, slowly, and loudly right now to see what happens and check that out. It actually does work.
It's pretty good. And I noticed that it got a couple words wrong, and then it went back and corrected it as you continue talking. It's a little creepy, honestly, sometimes, how smart it seems, the way it can gather context, because I noticed first it said to as in TOO, and then it changed that to TO as you continued that sentence. So yeah, it doesn't do punctuation though. That is one limitation compared to a live human captioner.
Yeah. You know what I think is cool about this? It kind of disciplines the speaker.
It does.
To really project, speak slowly, speak clearly, take out the ums and the like. I mean, I noticed that already in class because I do the panopto captioning.
Yeah.
That's not bad by itself.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is actually really helpful for me, because sometimes when I'm doing a presentation, I tend to go a little bit too fast. Sometimes I'm not as clear as I could be, and this is really forcing me to be more conscious of that. And that's not always easy. I'm a little self-conscious about it, but it's actually really helpful. So I'm planning on continuing to use this setup here that I'm using, where I have a Google Slide in the background, and then I have whatever I'm doing in the foreground.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna see how that works for me.
It looks good.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed so far.
Yeah. You know what would be cool if it now was able to figure out that different people are speaking, and then that shows up in different colors or with a little symbol.
That would be great. That is something that I think Zoom will have an advantage in, because in the list of participants in Zoom, it already has your name, and it will be able to tell whose audio is coming through each channel. So I think that once that is available, it will label each person. It'll say, Ursula says this, Caleb says this, Vanessa says this. With this system, it's not connected to Zoom in any way, so it doesn't know our names or know where the audio is coming from or anything like that.
Yeah.
Still, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Well, that's it for today's Tech Talks. Do you have any topics in mind for a future session, Ursula?
The feedback loop, and I actually see on the screen that there is information in the faculty development Canvas shell.
Yeah.
One of the most frustrating things for me is that I'm not sure how many students read my feedback.
Okay. Yeah, that's a classic struggle.
Because I give them the many opportunities to hand in drafts. And then I sometimes get the actual assignment, and obviously the feedback was not applied. Oops.
Yes, that's a good one. That's a good one. There's different strategies and different additional assignments that you can use to basically force them to engage with feedback. Yeah, I'm going to make a note of that. I don't know if that would be something that we could cover in a 15-minute tech talk, or maybe that's worth a full hour session at some point.
I've got a strategy for Ursula that someone shared with me recently, and that is that the instructor embeds a specific question into the feedback that will require the students to write them back. That way, if they write back, he knows he read them, or they will just simply say, please acknowledge that you have read this feedback.
So that's interesting, Vanessa, because I sometimes do ask questions, and I would say about maybe 20% of students respond and the others don't. And I never quite know whether that's because they didn't see the question or what happened there.
Yeah, so maybe be a little more direct. Ask a question and then explicitly state that you would like a reply, and maybe make the final points or the final score based on that. To receive full credit, please make sure to respond to this feedback or whatever it might be. That It's worked for other folks that have shared that with me. Just thought I'd mention it.
Something that I have seen instructors do, and I think it's especially useful in like formative writing classes, is to actually have an assignment where students do error logs or feedback logs, where for one graded assignment, they're writing you a paper, and then the instructor is looking at that, grading it, giving them feedback. And then for another graded assignment, they have to look at those feedback and those corrections, and then create something based on that. A list of their own personal common mistakes that they have realized that they are making, and then what they are doing to correct those mistakes and to learn from that. But that is an extra layer of work for the instructor and for the students. So I don't know that that's always the appropriate solution, but that's one thing that I've seen instructors do.
I tried that out in the summer because I ran a seminar I had never run before, so it was brand new and I could structure it really well. And I tried that out, like Vanessa, what you said, and Caleb, and it was beneficial. And I think I just have to look at all my regular classes and maybe reduce a couple of, I don't know, quizzes or discussion boards, and instead really focus on teaching more deeply rather than broadly, basically.
Yeah. And I think, it's very dependent on the class and the content of the class. But I think sometimes that is the right choice. I don't think that it is useful to the instructor or to the student if we're just piling on more and more things. But you're right, there might be a case where that extra discussion board would not be as helpful as some kind of reflective paper that the student is doing, reflecting on their own learning and their own process.
Yeah, especially if it's a common mistake they make over and over and over. So I like that. This is, you guys are giving me good tips. Yeah.
Well,
This is great.
but it's a much broader topic than something we can cover in a couple of minutes. So I think it's worth looking at it as a future topic. So thank you.
Sure. Yeah. This is
All
great.
right.
I really enjoyed this.
Good. Well, thank you for coming. And thank you to anybody that was watching on YouTube or anybody that watches the recording of this later on. And that's it for today's Tech Talks. We will be doing another one starting in January, right, Vanessa? Is that when we're starting back up?
January 12th, yes.
January 12th. Okay, perfect. So I hope everybody has a great holiday break and recharges a little bit, makes it through finals week and final grading, and we will see you all in January.
Great.
I mean, we'll still be here. I'm still here. I'm not going on vacation or anything, so feel free to email or call if you have any questions, but we'll be back with Tech Talks next month.
Cool idea. Thank you, you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.